To respect everyone's time, I will be beginning. The session will also be recorded so that we can share this more widely with other stakeholders and actors in Myanmar. Thanks a lot to everyone. I am Bernard Heng. I am the program specialist from Humanitarian OpenStreetMap Team and the project lead for the Crowdsourced Damage Assessment Project in Myanmar. So today we'll probably share a little more about what we have worked on in the past few months. And I want to start with a quick introduction to HOT, or Humanitarian OpenStreetMap Team, and our Asia Pacific Regional Hub. So again, the entire workshop will be broken down into 4 parts. We'll do a little introduction first, followed by more detailed introduction to what we have supported during the Myanmar earthquake response. We'll also share a little more about our experience, the data itself, and our insights in implementing the project. And last of all, we'll cap off this entire workshop with trainings on MapSwipe, Hot Tasking Manager, and Map Roulette. Okay. So for those who are not familiar with us, Humanitarian OpenStreetMap Team, or HOT for short, it's an international NGO, and we have been around ever since for more than a decade. And we have been working to support disaster response, even back during the Haiti earthquakes. Our goal is to work with communities globally to not only contribute open geospatial data, but to also tap onto open geospatial data for humanitarian responses, development initiatives, and climate action. We have 4 different regional hubs around the world, 1 in Latin America, 2 in Africa, and 1 covering the Asia Pacific region, of which I am from. Some of my colleagues in this call are also from, and under which the project is from. So we work very, very much with OpenStreetMap, which is an open source, free editable map that is available online and accessible by anyone around the world. The most important aspect about OpenStreetMap is that anyone can also edit the map. We have several tools that we work with for example, we have Hot Tasking Manager, which supports remote mapping and was extensively used to support the Myanmar earthquake response. With the Tasking Manager itself, remote mapping is possible from anywhere in the world. It is browser-based, and anyone can use it to map buildings, roads, land use, etc., and upload it to OpenStreetMap for others to access. We also work very, very closely with OpenStreetMap communities around the Asia Pacific region. The idea is that we want to nurture more open mapping communities and ecosystems around the region, and we want to champion the use of OpenStreetMap and open geospatial data, including in Myanmar. So there are a couple of projects that we have worked on in this region that I want to quickly share with you. In Philippines and Indonesia, for example, there is Feel Aware and InAware, where we work with governments and international NGOs to conduct extensive mapping of the city and infrastructure. The data will go on then to support disaster responses, early warning systems, and anticipatory action. We also work with social enterprises. In this particular case, we work with Hasiru Afwan in Bangalore, India, to map out water bodies in the Bangalore city. The idea is that this would provide them with a better idea of where are possible opportunities for them to expand their fisheries. At the same time, the data will go on to, because it's open, will go on to support other local stakeholders, including the government and other actors working on water conservation. Okay, so that was a quick introduction of what we have been working on, what hot is and what we have been working on in the region. Now I want to talk a little more about our support to the Myanmar earthquake response since March itself. I'm excited to share that this was done in close partnership with the Myanmar OpenStreetMap Community, or myOSM, and this is supported by H2H Network and with further support from UK FCDO. So, as many of you know, we have seen devastating earthquakes in Myanmar in March 2025. Since 31st March, HOT has been activated in close collaboration with myOSM, CD Myanmar, and our global and local pools of volunteers to map and validate buildings in earthquake-affected areas on HOT Tasking Manager. So the data is available on OpenStreetMap and HDX. So I'll show some of the data later on in my presentation. But what I'm excited to show also and share with everyone is that in the past months, we have seen more than 1.7 million buildings mapped, more than 20,000 kilometers of roads mapped with the support of 3,431 volunteer mappers around the world. Most of them are also from myOSM, and they have been dedicated in helping us improve the map data in Myanmar. The data itself also have seen more than 1,000 downloads for road networks and more than 300 downloads for OSM building footprints. In the wake of the earthquake, one of the first things that we realized was that many townships in central Myanmar were unmapped, and existing data were also extremely outdated. Some townships face up to 85% data gaps. And without updated data, many humanitarian actors had to rely on outdated or AI-generated data sets in their early response. And you'll find that on the charts on the screen itself, in the past 5 years, there were not a lot of effort involved in updating a lot of the OSM data, with most of the updates being more recent and within the 2025 itself. So the Crowdsourced Damage Assessment Project was launched with the support of H2H Network and UK FCTO from May to October. And the objective of the project itself was to improve much needed open geospatial data to support not only early disaster response, but recovery efforts as Myanmar continues to build back better. There are three main objectives that we're looking at. The first is to improve foundational building footprints OSM data in OSM for priority affected townships. The second is a piloting of crowdsourced damage assessments with local Myanmar mappers, also in priority affected townships. And the third, which we will share quite a bit with you all in the presentation later, it's to develop a data comparison framework of open building footprint data sets, showcasing what are some of the limitations and advantages of different sources of data. And throughout this entire project, as I mentioned, we have worked very, very closely with Myanmar OpenStreetMap Community, or myOSM. This is a group of, this is a network of local mappers that has a lot of different experiences in mapping, and they have been supporting the project to ensure that outputs are accurate and reliable. And through the project itself, we work closely with 15 myOSM mappers, providing them with opportunities to and capacity building programs to train them on open mapping skills and tools, which will eventually lead to their graduation as hot gurus in late October or later in November. Another thing about the project, it's we work a lot with open source tools such as MapSwipe and HOT's Tasking Manager. The objective of this pure use of open source tool It's so that we can crowdsource more mapping support and enable more local mappers to be able to contribute their local knowledge in supporting us in identifying, mapping, validating, and conducting damage assessments. So on the screen itself, you can see that we have worked with MapSwipe, for example, to identify buildings and damaged buildings in satellite imagery. We also work with Hot Tasking Manager to map out all of these different buildings and road networks and upload it to OpenStreetMap. We also work with Map Roulette to ensure that we are able to validate each and every data that is being uploaded to OpenStreetMap. And last of all, we have integrated a lot of validation mechanisms in every step of the process to ensure that the data that goes out is accurate and reliable and can support humanitarian responses and recovery efforts. And throughout this entire process, local knowledge was critical as validation mechanisms, ensuring that all of the data being uploaded is correct and localized to Myanmar. Okay, so having spoken about what CDA is, the processes, our partners, and our objectives, I want to talk to you a little more about, I want to share a little more about what we have learned and why we feel that it's beneficial for Myanmar and its developments going forward. I think the first thing, the biggest takeaway is that our innovative and accessible methodology built on open source training, built on open source tools, provides scalability that can allow us to rapidly reach all affected populations at the same time. Rather than having focusing on priority townships in Mandalay, for example, or Yangon, for example, we are able to work with a huge group of experienced mappers, both locally and globally, to tackle mapping of several different regions at the same time and to push out much needed data as soon as possible. As you can tell in the maps on the screen itself, in January, which is on the left, and in October, which is on the right, with the support of our mappers, we have seen extensive updates to building footprints in yellow and road networks in purple in all of the different townships that we have mapped, from Bago to Magwe to Mandalay to Naypyidaw and to Sagaing. And I think it's an astonishing feat that we are able to achieve so much over the past months. We have mapped more than 29 townships with 25 that are fully mapped and validated. We have also conducted damage assessments in 20 townships. And all of these accessible tools and trainings really lower the barrier to allow us to mobilize more support and volunteers. And you could see that the number of contributors continue to support our mapping efforts in Myanmar, even past the initial months of the earthquakes up to June, July, August, and September. We have also seen a lot of international support from more than 35 different countries contributing to mapping in Myanmar. And we feel that the HOTS CDA approach that is again accessible allows you and your partners in Myanmar to be able to tap on such a wide community to support mapping efforts. So another thing that we learned was that in the initial stages, when everyone was relying on AI-generated data sets, we realized that, hey, AI models are beneficial because they can rapidly generate building footprints and damage assessments for use in early disaster response, especially when there isn't any open geospatial data available. As mentioned, some townships had more than 85% data gaps. But in Myanmar, one of the things that we are cautious about and we have assessed is that AI models are still imprecise and misinforming humanitarian action and potentially doing more harm in the later stages of a disaster response. when you have much more better geospatial data available, more accurate geospatial data available. So I should be sharing the recordings, the slides with all of you after this workshop. You can click on the links in the slide itself to look at some of the materials that we have prepared, some of the data that we have prepared, including the blog post on what are some of the problems with the AI generated data sets. So there are two big issues with the AI generated data sets that we have identified when compared to OSM data, which was manually mapped and validated by us and Myanmar mappers. So as you can tell, the accuracy of the shapes itself is much more it's imprecise and definitely of a lower quality than what we can find on OSM. You will be able to see some of the weird shapes in Microsoft over here as compared to what was manually mapped by our Myanmar members. There are also a higher number of false positives and false negatives. So false positives meant that misidentified buildings. These are areas where Microsoft has mapped a building, even though there are no buildings on the satellite imagery. False negatives are where these are areas where there are buildings, for example, on the satellite imagery, but Microsoft has not mapped the building. So you'll be able to see on the chart itself that when compared to AI generated data sets like Microsoft, manually mapped and validated data sets are still superior. Another big issue when comparing Microsoft's AI generated data sets against OSM, which is manually mapped and validated, is that there are a lot of missing building footprints from the AI generated data sets. And we are quite cautious that this is an incomplete data set risks misrepresenting local populations and rendering them invisible. And this is very consistent with what we have found in Lebanon, where we found more than 65% small buildings in OSM compared to automated machine learning data sets. In the case of Myanmar, for example, we saw more than 57% OSM data, building footprints data, compared to Microsoft. And that meant that for those that are working with Microsoft's data sets, besides the problems with shape, location, and accuracy, you have almost 60% less data, 60% less buildings, and potentially 60% less households. And this is what we meant by why we are worried that this is a misrepresentation, and we are worried that these populations become invisible. Okay, so having shared with all of you the open geospatial data aspect, the mapping aspect of sorry, I just realized my YouTube is still on. Sorry, I hope everyone could hear properly. So having shared with everyone what we have worked on in terms of foundational building footprints data sets and road network data sets, I want to talk a little more about our damage assessments, working in close collaboration with myOSM Myanmar members, our data and our findings. So in the past months itself, since May, we have identified more than 2,469 damaged buildings across 20 townships with our Myanmar members. You can find on the chart itself the breakdown of all of the different damaged buildings across all of the different townships that were mapped. I just want to take this chance to point out that with the support of our Myanmar mappers, we reached more townships than what UNOSAT and Microsoft had conducted in. And an overview of the analysis of the damaged buildings from all three, CDA, Microsoft, and UNOSAT, shows that CDA is generally much more conservative than Microsoft, but UNOSAT is also generally more conservative than CDA. So CDA is the more, UNOSAT is the most conservative of all the different damage assessment methodologies, whereas Microsoft is a bit more, it's much more less, much less conservative. You can be able to find in the chart over here with Microsoft represented by yellow, UNOSAT represented by green, and CDA represented by blue. One of the things that we do start to take note is that CDA and UNOSAT has much more similarities in terms of the number of damaged buildings, but majority of Microsoft's output are outliers. They are significantly higher than what CDA and UNOSAT has identified. And to better understand this data itself and better understand what are the different accuracy advantages and limitations of different damage data sets, because there's no perfect damage assessment methodology. We conducted a series of validation consultation workshops with Myanmar mappers, and the whole objective is to assess the accuracy, the replicability, and scalability of CDA. So during this workshop, participants will go through a series of rapid training on how to identify damaged buildings. They'll go through both good and bad examples of damaged buildings, not just from UNOSAT, but also from CDA. And once they have gone through this quick training, we'll launch into a series of exercises. This is where sample damaged buildings chosen randomly through QGIS, chosen from CDA, from UNOSAT, from Microsoft, will be shared with our participants. So they will be referring to the pre and post satellite imagery, and they would answer whether or not if the building is damaged or not damaged, and whether or not that aligns with the original assessment, which is these are damaged buildings. In the next slide, then they will start to share their thoughts on what were their processes in identifying whether or not this building is damaged or not damaged. What were the evidences and signs that they were looking out for that tells them that this is damaged or not damaged. So this is the entire methodology for the validation consultation workshops. And in the next few slides, I will share with you some of our findings and why there are some differences between all of the different damage assessment methodologies. But I do want to point out here that because CDA conducted damage assessments in more townships compared to UNOSAT and Microsoft, we obviously have more examples from CDA that is being reviewed compared to UNOSAT and Microsoft, and this might skew the findings a little. Okay, so let's talk a little more about what we found from the workshop itself and why are there differences between the damage assessment methodologies. Why is there a difference between UNOSAT, Microsoft, and CDA? So the first thing that we realize is that there is significant difference in the participants' assessment and validation of damaged buildings across different imageries. So imageries in Myanmar's earthquake response played a huge part in shaping the accuracy of whether or not the building is actually damaged or not. MEXAs, based on their participants' visual inspection, most of them agree with the outputs that were identified using MEXA's satellite imagery. So again, these are in areas where there's MEXA post-disaster satellite imagery. Using a satellite imagery, mappers will look at the building and determine whether or not it's damaged. And this data will be also shared on the validation consultation workshops, where other participants will review whether or not this is a correct decision or it's a wrong decision. And when it comes to MEXA, most of the decision to identify damaged buildings are correct, as opposed to Planet, which, as you can tell, is low resolution, it has coarser texture, and it's discolored. And these are three very important factors that makes it difficult for our mappers to identify accurately damage buildings. And I'll tell you a little more why later on. Another thing that we noted through the workshops is that there are definitely slight differences in the accuracy of damage assessment methodologies. And based on the participants' visual inspection during the workshop itself, most of them agree with CDA's outputs at 44.3%. Whereas when it comes to Microsoft and UNOSAT, it's much more lower. And there are more participants. In other words, there are more participants that disagree with what Microsoft and UNOSAT has identified as damaged. And we attribute this to the involvement of local mappers in CDA, and that their local knowledge was critical in ensuring that we can reliably identify damaged buildings. And the last thing is in terms of region. So there are definitely some differences in accuracy of damage assessments across different regions. In this case, Admin 1, from Sagaing to Mandalay to Naypyidaw and to Magwe. So based on the participants' visual inspections during the workshop, most of them agree with outputs in Sagaing and Mandalay. And I also want to point out that Sagaing and Mandalay are areas that are covered by MEXA, which is much more clearer imagery, and are also closer to the epicenter, which then contributes to clearer signs of damages that our mappers could have better picked out from. Interestingly enough, we're still trying to understand why, and we will reach out to Microsoft and UNOSAT after this. Microsoft is very consistent across different regions. So in this case, in Mandalay and in Naypyidaw, two very different regions, two very different imageries. Their scores are very, very similar. So that was a very interesting finding for us, that in this case, perhaps it says that AI models are not very biased when it comes to differences in contexts, and their perhaps model is wide and broad enough to cover multiple different contexts. However, again, this AI model still needs further training, because at the moment it's still very imprecise, and the majority of their damage assessment is still invalidated by our workshop participants. Okay, so I've told you about the trends. I told you about our findings. Now I want to tell you a little more about what are the different advantages and limitations of different damage assessment methodologies, including CDA, that you could take away for future disaster responses. So the first thing is, when you have poor resolution, coarse imagery textures, and discoloration, it really makes it very difficult for our mappers to detect damaged buildings. Shadows also play a huge part in obscuring some of the buildings, making it difficult to see if there are any signs of damages. However, this we note, offer AI models such as Microsoft's a niche space to fill. Low resolution is not something that we can magically improve by ourselves, but with existing AI, existing technologies, including AI, we could build more on them, including the artificial improvement of resolutions to help better identify damaged buildings in some of these areas. There's a lot of work for AI to work on. There's a lot of potential, but at the moment, again, it is still much too imprecise for humanitarian responses. Another challenge that our mappers faced was that when comparing pre and post disaster imageries, developments over time can be misleading in some cases, especially when the time gap between the pre and post disaster imagery is significant, which was the case for Myanmar. Major urban and structural changes can show similar signs to earthquake damages, including observed debris and changes in the roof. Vegetation growth, which is very common in the areas that we're working on in Myanmar, also can make it very difficult to identify changes and damages because the tree would again obscure some parts of the building. So in the examples below, you'll be able to find that certain areas and certain buildings were identified by UNOSAT as damaged, where our mappers have instead pointed out that this could have been a renovation, or perhaps this is urban development and not a result of the earthquake. The last thing is that compared to other damage assessment methodologies, be it Microsoft or UNOSAT, we found that local knowledge is critical, again, critical in reliably identifying damaged buildings. Our mappers' local knowledge of architecture, urban context, and the climate were very important in one, identifying the different changes, and two, being able to differentiate what was structural developments from damages. And for example, in this case over here on the left, you'll be able to find that UNOSAT has identified some damaged buildings in this area. But our mappers understood that there were major urban developments in the area and could have contributed to the damage, and it was not a result of the earthquake. Another example is that despite the poor imagery and discoloration, our mappers were able to tell that this stupa was not damaged because they understood the architecture of the stupa and recognized that it was not damaged, even though UNOSAT has classified it as damaged. And why we know this? Because through the validation consultation workshops itself, we started trying to understand what were the mappers' thought processes, what were they looking out for when they determined if a building was damaged or not damaged. And we put in a lot of different of their feedback to form a word cloud. And from then on, we broke it down to 5 different categories. First is architecture. A close understanding of Burmese architecture in Myanmar, be it stupa, be it houses, be it community centers, for example. They will be much more familiar with how the architecture looks like and determine if the building is damaged or not. Another is is looking at the pre and post disaster imagery and looking out for changes. They look for example, cracks, to the shifting of the roof, for example, whether or not there's any distortion of the structure or modification of the structure over time. The location and context is also very, very important. They look at the vegetation and the leaf fall, for example, and say that because of this season, there are much more leaf fall in the area itself, and it could have come off as damage, signs of damages, but it's actually not. They also looked at, for example, other buildings within the area and say that, hey, there's a damaged building right beside the building that we're looking at. And this could be a sign that this area experienced quite a bit of damages, and it's likely that the building is also damaged. Color is also very important. Some of the feedback from mappers were that, hey, there are much more reddish tones on the ground itself, and it could be a sign that the bricks, which are red, have fallen from the building, and it's a good sign, good indication that the building is damaged. And last of all is the shape and position. They were looking at whether or not the outlines are still the same, whether or not the building has shifted, the roof have shifted. They were looking at the different angles of the buildings and whether or not there is any changes before and after. So I think these are very helpful for us going forward to understand how to improve CDA. How can we better train future batches of mappers on what to take note of, when they were trying to look through satellite imageries and to identify buildings, damaged buildings. So some of the interesting quotes, for example, I just want to quickly share with you, is that, hey, the ground color has changed to red, and it might be because the stupa and pagoda were built with bricks that are red in color. Another interesting one that I found was that it's damaged because there is no golden reflection. As stupas are normally covered with golden painting and gold, and this reflection didn't show in the post-disaster imagery, which might be an indication that the building is damaged. Another one is that they were looking at the ages itself of the building itself, and because the ages disappeared in the post-disaster imagery, that was also an important, helpful clue in saying that the building is damaged. So what we did was to package all of our learnings in the pilot implementation of CDA and compare it to what we found from UNOSAT and Microsoft. And we tried to identify different key characteristics of damage assessment methodologies on what shapes its accuracy and feasibility for future disaster responses in different contexts, not just in Myanmar, but in the rest of Asia Pacific and even the rest of the world. So there are 5 different key characteristics that we're looking at for when we compare across 4 different types of assessment. We have AI generated mapping and damage assessment, and examples are Microsoft and Google. We have CDA, which is manually mapped and validated crowdsourced mapping and damage assessment. We have expert reliant remote mapping and damage assessment, which is UNOSAT. And of course, we have field damage assessment, which was led by UNOPS and Myanmar Engineering Society, among others. So there are 5 different characteristics, and one of the first things that we need to be aware of is the number of manpower and type of manpower that is needed. When it comes to AI-generated damage assessments, you don't need as many people involved. It could be done very rapidly, but you need key experts, technical experts with a lot of experience, not just in mapping, but also with AI. And there are not a lot of disaster responses where we can afford such technical personnel. With CDA itself, it requires the most number of volunteer mappers, but it allows more people to come in easily with some simple training and to support the disaster response in many different areas at once. But with UNOSAT itself, you will still require some trained mappers and they have to go through extensive specialized training. And last of all, with field damage assessment, this is also very technical and typically will require engineers to be involved, and many engineers as they go down to the ground to assess for damage. Second key characteristic is the speed of the methodology. So with AI-generated datasets, as I mentioned, it's extremely rapid, extremely rapid. It could be done within a few hours, it could be done within 24 hours. But whether or not it's precise and accurate and reliable enough for humanitarian response, I think that's a different story. But when it comes to HOT CDA itself, we have a broad range. It really depends on the capacity, local capacities on mapping itself, whether or not there's a strong OSM OpenStreetMap community involved, and if we are able to mobilize more volunteer mappers. If we are present in a country that we have long time interacted with and trained, it could allow CDA to be performed extremely rapidly as we tackle multiple townships at once. With UNOSAT itself, it's also a bit fast, but the challenge is that they are limited by the number of trained experts they have in their pool. And with field damage assessment, it's typically slower and really contingent on whether or not there's access to the ground itself. The third is the coverage of the methodology. So how much area are you able to work on? With AI, again, it's very extensive. As long as you have the right processing power, you can cover a lot of different townships. Likewise, with CDA, I think what we're proud of is our ability to work on multiple areas at once with our pool of mappers. With UNOSAT itself, it's a bit challenging. Again, they are limited by the number of experts that they are able to mobilize from their pool. And for field damage assessment, likewise, limited by the number of engineers that are able to mobilize. And what's most exciting for everyone, I guess, is the fourth key characteristic, which is the accuracy of the methodology itself. Generally across the board, be it from Microsoft to UNOSAT to CDA, it really varies across contexts. Again, there's no one perfect damage assessment methodology, except field damage assessments. Field damage assessments are the most accurate, but it takes too much time to be able to, and it's very difficult to cover a huge area. And that's where remote mapping comes in, from Microsoft to CDA to UNOSAT. In Myanmar itself, we find Microsoft to be the least accurate. There are a lot of challenges with their data sets and their damage assessments. With CDA itself, the poor imagery in areas with planet often reduces the accuracy of our damage assessment. But at the same time, we also noted that as compared to UNOSAT, involvement of mappers with local knowledge have been found to improve accuracy. Whereas with UNOSAT itself, while they are much well-trained, poor imagery continues to pose a problem to the accuracy of their damage assessment. And last of all, for us, this is very important, accessibility of the methodology. If the methodology is not accessible and not deployable to different disaster response, then again, there's no point. With Microsoft's AI-generated damage assessment, it's very challenging to find reliable and locally trained AI models. And these AI models typically require extensive training before it can be applied to a new context. And this requires a lot of in-depth knowledge to operate. When it comes to CDA, we found that it's very easy to train local Myanmar mappers with simple open source trainings. And we work a lot with open source tools that are accessible to everyone. So making CDA much more easier for everyone to take on to support the disaster response. However, when it comes to UNOSAT, while it's slightly similar, they require their mappers to undergo specialized trainings before they can contribute. So there's a huge blocker, especially when you are unable to complete it before any potential disasters. Last of all, when it comes to field damage assessments, this can only be typically handled by engineers who are, by definition, have gone through specialized trainings. Okay, so that's a very quick comparison of the different types of damage assessment methodologies found in Myanmar itself. And as I mentioned, CDA has found itself with slightly more accuracy compared to other damage assessments based on our workshop. At the end of the day, we know that there's still room to further improve the CDA methodology. There are three things that we've identified over here. The first is that high-resolution satellite imagery is extremely important. So this is below 50 cm. It allows us to better identify signs of damages and to use that to then map out the damaged buildings. Second, it's up-to-date pre-disaster imagery to support better comparisons between pre and post-disaster, pre and post-disasters. And the third is funding to support better participation of local mappers who are often from the same affected populations. And this pays a two-pronged benefit. The first is that we are better able to support them during their times of crisis. And second, we are able to tap onto mappers who have local knowledge and can ensure that the data that we're producing is accurate and reliable for humanitarian responses. The problem with this is that, as all of you may know, in 2025, we are seeing increasingly challenges to the funding climate. We are also seeing increasing withdrawal of open source databases. And we are very keen on working with a lot of different stakeholders in Myanmar to explore how we can champion for a more open data ecosystem in a safe manner. So what we are very interested to do is two parts. We're very interested to explore opportunities for collaboration in Myanmar on your open mapping needs. Some of the questions that you could ask and we could chat is, how are you using the data on the buildings, the road networks, and the damage? Is there any way that we can support you and work with you to create map visualizations to better convey messaging? Are there any other map features that you are working on that we can collaborate on and work with other mappers and local stakeholders? So we did a couple of examples based on open source data sets that are available, including on HDX. As I mentioned, I will be sharing the slides with everyone, and you'll be able to find all of the different data sets available on the slides itself. The first is with foundational building footprints and road network data sets that we have developed with myOSM over the past month. We are able to conduct an accessibility study of public hospitals in central Mandalay. This allows us to tell which are the areas that are well served by hospitals and which are the areas that are underserved by hospitals. And this would not have been possible if we had not improved base OSM building footprints and road network data sets in these different areas. And we're just talking about Mandalay. There are 28 other townships that we have worked on that could also benefit from the same analysis. Second analysis we did was to conduct compounding vulnerability analysis by overlaying different kinds of vulnerabilities. The first is where we have identified damaged buildings to be. The second is drought risk. And again, this would not have been possible without our work on with myOSM on where the different building data sets are, where the road networks data sets are, and where the damaged buildings are. You'll be able to find all of the different data sets over here. And we have identified that in all of the different areas itself, there are, so out of 157,000 buildings, 75% of these buildings are located within drought risk zone itself. And within that area, 33 different damaged buildings are also found to be within the same area. And multiple compounding vulnerabilities puts these buildings, these households, these local communities at even higher risk going forward. And those are some of the examples of how we can use OSM in Myanmar. OSM that is open, editable, and free for everyone to support and inform your work on the ground itself. And one thing that we realize is that when it comes to OpenStreetMap expertise or capacities in Myanmar itself, there is still room to improve and expand. And we're very excited to see how we can help improve the none to a little to yes. We want to work with as many different local stakeholders, grassroots and CSOs, agencies, and communities to see how we can train, share with you more trainings and capacity building programs, how we can collaborate with you to create more OpenStreetMap data. And many of you have mentioned that these are data sets, geospatial data sets that you're working on. We're excited to see how this could be translated to OpenStreetMap so that you not only benefit from the data itself, but others can benefit from the same data sets that you're working with. Of course, I say all of this with the underlying awareness that this needs to be done in a safe manner, in a manner that the data could not be used and exploited to target certain populations. But at the end of the day, we are excited to see how we can work with all of you, different stakeholders in Myanmar itself, to develop a data model that we can advise partners to say that, hey, this is good data, safe data to upload to OSM. These are data that other actors will need, and these are data that cannot be exploited to target communities. And we're excited to hear more from you. So please do reach out to us. You can feel free to email me. Let me know some of your needs, some of your concerns, some of your questions. I'm more than happy to see how I could clarify, how I could meet with you to discuss more. And we definitely see a lot of value in Myanmar in expanding open mapping efforts, but in a safe and inclusive manner. And again, I want to mention that in the aftermath of the earthquake, OSM data gaps stood at 85%. If we had 100% updated and reliable OSM data ready to go, it would have taken much more faster time to get data to our responders and to help inform their planning and response. So we really need to act now to prepare for a future crisis. And the benefits of OpenStreetMap data is that it's not just beneficial for future crises, but also for development initiatives for climate action. With that, then, I've talked a lot. I would like to take a pause here, and I want to open up the floor to any questions. Do not worry if it could be in English, it could be in Burmese. Joe Zayalin is here to help translate your questions. So let me know if you have any questions. Anyone, just feel free to put it in the chat or unmute yourself. Any questions? Maybe Joe Zayalin, can you help me translate? Let them know that if there are any questions, feel free to share in English or Burmese, it's fine. And we're here to clarify. Yes, Faisal.
Hello, I'm Faiza and I'm actually from Bangladesh, and I have worked in this project, Myanmar project, for quite a long time. And I have a question. Like, we have mapped buildings and roads too, and this presentation was on the buildings damage assessment. So did we was there any damage assessment for roads also?
Thanks a lot for the question. There were no damage assessments for road yet. I think for this particular pilot or CDA, we wanted to focus on one aspect, which is the buildings itself. We understood that in early response, there were other actors that were working on damage assessments for roads and are actively mapping them. And we felt that there was still a huge gap when it comes to buildings. So we decided to focus on that. But I completely agree with you, Faisal, going forward that CDA can expand to include other features, including roads, for example, including more specific features like healthcare facilities. Thanks a lot for your question. Anyone else? Just maybe you can help me ask them in Burmese if you have any question.
မေးကြမေးဖို့နဲ့ရှိနေဆိုလို့ရှိရင်လည်းမြန်မာလိုမေးလို့လည်းရပါတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့မြန်မာလိုမေးလို့မေးရင်ကျွန်တော်ကတော့တို့နဲ့ဟိုဘာပေါ့နော်မေးခွန်းတွေသူမေးပြလို့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဖြေတဲ့ဟာကိုလည်းပြန် translate လုပ်ပြလို့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်there's a couple of questions in the chat.
Yes. Okay. While we wait for the others, let me tackle TT's question. So you'll be able to find Microsoft AI's data online. And it's open and accessible to everyone. And that's what is amazing about their data. I will also add it to the slides over here so that you can also check it out when you receive the slides. However, in terms of studying, so this was conducted in our validation consultation workshops where we took sample data sets from UNOSAT, from Microsoft, and from CDA, and we then compare by getting the participants to validate or invalidate some of these assessments. So the study is not available online other than the analysis that we have shared in the slides itself. I hope that's helpful. Okay, let me just put a point. Add Microsoft data to slides. Ralph.
Yes, thank you, Bernard. You covered so many of the problems that we have had with regard to accurate mapping. But Patrick has a question there about whether there were previous studies or comparisons with differences in the AI. And yes, we started off with the Turkey-Syria earthquake using AI building footprints. And the first 3 projects, we had so many problems with bad errors in the AI mapping that we stopped using AI mapping after the 3rd project. But while the AI is very good in the rural areas, we found out that it really fell down when it came to predicting buildings in the built-up cities and towns. So we have to be careful in what area we use the AI because of this factor. Cities and towns are very poor, but rural countryside is quite good. This consistency was also found when we mapped Lebanon and Gaza. And we relied totally on volunteers to identify and map those areas because they were a lot more accurate than the AI models. So we, at this stage, while AI is a lot faster, as Bernard pointed out, it also has a lot more problems involved in false positives and false negatives. Back to you, Bernard.
Much thanks for that, Ralph. And I think you have concluded it very well that AI is not a problem in the sense that we cannot disregard the potentials and benefits of AI. However, we also need to recognize the problems that the challenges that AI has and the limitations that AI has. In a humanitarian context such as this, the first and foremost, the biggest principle of all is to ensure that we do no harm. And our challenges with Microsoft in Myanmar is that their first layer of building footprints was AI. Using that, they conducted a second layer of AI damage assessment, which means there are 2 different layers of AI model being applied. And that could have led to the poor accuracy that we have noted in our assessments. That being said, I think when it comes to AI models, we cannot deny its benefits in being rapid. And one of the things that HOT is actively looking at is developing local AI models for different contexts around the world. So this is not a one-size-fits-all AI model. These are localized AI models that anyone can work with, anyone can use to train on their local context for their local use. And I think that's a very exciting way forward compared to what some of the existing AI models are trying to do. I hope that answers your question, Patrick. While we wait for others, can I request Patrick and Josiah 5 minutes just to share a little more about what both myOSM and CD Myanmar is doing for map data in Myanmar itself. They have been extremely valuable partners during this entire project, and a significant portion of the contributions also came from their support itself. So perhaps if you can, perhaps you want to share a little more about what you are doing and how could they find you in the future for potential partnerships?
Okay. Bernard, thanks for the floor. Can I say in Burmese?
Yes.
It would be much more, you know. အားလုံးပဲမင်္ဂလာပါကျွန်တော်နာမည်ကတော့ကျော်စရာသိမ်းပါပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်ကဒီ CD မြန်မာmyOSM အဖွဲ့ကိုဦးစီးဆောင်ပြီးလုပ်နေတဲ့သူပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်နဲ့တခြားသော colleague တယောက်ဖြစ်တဲ့ဒီဘတ်တီလာဆွေဆိုတဲ့တယောက်ကလည်းကျွန်တော်နဲ့အတူလုပ်နေတာပေါ့နော်အားလုံးလည်းတော်တော်များများဒီထဲမှာ join နေသူတွေကျွန်တော်ကြည့်ရတော့မြန်မာတွေများတယ်ပေါ့နော်ပြီးလို့ရှိရင်ပေါ့နော်ဟိုများသောအားဖြင့်ကျွန်တော်တို့နဲ့တွဲလုပ်ခွင့်တွေများတယ်ပေါ့နော်အချို့အစ်စ်တွေလည်းကျွန်တော်တွေ့ပါတယ်အဲ့အစ်စ်တွေကိုလည်းတခြားသော ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီ OpenStreetMap group တွေမှာလည်းသူတို့မိထားတဲ့ဟာလေးကိုကျွန်တော်တွေ့မိရပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒါတွေကိုလည်းပြန်တော့အကြောင်းမပြန်နိုင်ဘူးပေါ့နော်ဒါပေမဲ့လည်းအကြောင်းပြန်မှုရှိတယ်တချို့တွေဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အသစ်တွေကျွန်တော်တို့ရဲ့ဒီ HOD စတိုင်းဘက်မှာပါထားတဲ့မဟုတ်ဘူးပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်ပေါ့နော်ဒီhistory ကြောင်းပြောရမယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့ဒီ OpenStreetMap ကိုစပြီးလေ့လာကြတာတော့2018လောက်ကနေကျွန်တော်ပေါ့နော်စပြီးတော့ဒီ CD မြန်မာမှာကျွန်တော်ဒီ OpenStreetMap ကိုစပြီးလေ့လာခဲ့ရပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ကတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့နိုင်ငံအခြေအနေကဒီပေါ့နော်ပွင့်လင်းတဲ့ဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်အဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့တွေဒီဘယ်လောက်အဆင့်ဒီလုပ်နိုင်ခဲ့လဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့အစိုးရပိုင်းပေါ့နော်ဒီဘယ်လိုပြောမလဲတိုင်းဒေသကြီးအစိုးရလိုမျိုးဟိုမှာသွားပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ရဲ့ဒီဘုံအချက်လက်တွေကိုသွားပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ present လုပ်နိုင်ခဲ့တယ်ပေါ့နော်ဘယ်မှာစပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့စလုပ်တယ်လဲဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့တဝယ်ပေါ့နော်တနင်္လာရီတိုင်းတဝယ်မြို့မှာစပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့တွေပေါ့နော်ဒီအဲ့မှာရှိတဲ့အချက်လက်တွေပေါ့နော်ဥပမာအိမ်တွေလမ်းတွေပြီးလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့တွေပြီးလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့တွေဒီပေါ့နော်ဟို critical infrastructure လို့ခေါ်တဲ့ဒီအစိုးရရုံးတွေပြီးလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့တွေပေါ့နော်ဟိုကျောင်းတွေ hospital clinic တွေစသဖြင့်အဲ့ဒါတွေအကုန်လုံးကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီဓာတ်တွေကောက်တက်ပြီးလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ပေါ့နော်ဒီကျေးအုပ်ချုပ်မှုရေးမှုတွေနဲ့တွားတွေ့ပြီးတော့အဲ့လူရက်ကွက်ထဲမှာရှိတဲ့ဟာတွေရဲ့နယ်နိမိတ်ပေါင်းတွေမှန်ရောမှန်ရလားမှန်လားစသဖြင့်အဲ့လိုတိုက်ပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့စစ်ခဲ့ပြီးတော့မှကျွန်တော်တို့တင်ခဲ့တယ်ပေါ့နော်အားလုံးတွားကြည့်ကျင်တယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့OpenStreetMap ဟိုပေါ့နော်ဒီတဝယ်တနင်္လာရီတိုင်းတဝယ်မျိုးပေါ့နော် OpenStreetMap ကိုတွားကြည့်မယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့မှာရှိတဲ့ data အချက်လက်တွေကကျွန်တော်တို့တော်တော်ပြည့်စုံတာကိုတွေ့ရလိမ့်မယ်ပေါ့နော်နောက်တစ်ခုကကြတော့မော်လမြိုင်မှာပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒါဘာနဲ့တွဲလို့တာလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော် missing map ပေါ့နော်ဒီပေါ့နော်missing map ဆိုတဲ့ project တစ်ခုရှိရပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော် American Red Cross နဲ့တွဲပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီဟိုပါပေါ့နော် myOSM နဲ့တွဲပြီးတော့အဲ့တော့ myOSM ဟိုလေးကိုအဲ့တော့ CD နဲ့မှာပဲရှိတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့တွဲလုပ်ပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီမော်လမြိုင်ပေါ့နော်မွန်ပြည်နယ်မော်လမြိုင်မှာကျွန်တော်တို့တွေဒီလို critical infrastructure တွေပြီးလို့ရှိရင် building footprint တွေပြီးရင် road တွေကျွန်တော်တို့အဲ့မှာကောက်ခဲ့တယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့အခုဆိုရင်လည်းသွားကြည့်လိုက်လို့ရှိရင်မော်လမြိုင်data ဒီမော်လမြိုင်ရဲ့အချက်လက်တွေတော်တော်ကိုစုံစုံလင်လင်ရှိတာကိုတွေ့လိမ့်မယ်ပေါ့နော်ဒုတိယကျွန်တော်ဒါဒီ OpenStreetMap နဲ့ကြုံခဲ့တဲ့ဟာပေါ့နော်အခုတတိယအနေနဲ့ကတော့ဗာလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့အခု2024ရာနေစပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့တွေ myOSM ဆိုတဲ့ဒီအဖွဲ့အစည်းလေးပေါ့နော်အဲ့အဖွဲ့အစည်းလေးကိုကျွန်တော်တို့တွေ activate တွေလုပ်ခဲ့တယ်စပြီးတော့ activate လုပ်လိုက်တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့တွေစတာတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီ member လေး5-6ယောက်လောက်နဲ့စခဲ့တယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒီ5-6ယောက်နဲ့စပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ဘာကြီးစပြီးဆွဲခဲ့တယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင် road တွေပြီးလို့ရှိရင်ဟို building footprint တွေပြီးလို့ရှိရင် settlement area တွေပေါ့နော် settlement area တွေကျွန်တော်တို့တွေလူနေအင်ဂျီတွေဘယ်နားမှာရှိလဲဆိုတဲ့ဟာတွေစပြီးဆွဲခဲ့တယ်ဒါကကျွန်တော်တို့တွေဒီဟိုပေါ့ဆွဲခဲ့တဲ့ဟာပေါ့နော်အဲ့အတူပဲကျွန်တော်တို့တွေ upload လုပ်ခဲ့တဲ့ဟာတွေလည်းရှိရပါလေဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဟိုပေါ့နော်ဒီ public health facility တွေပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့နဲ့ partner ဖြစ်တဲ့ဒီမြန်မာအဖွဲ့အစည်းရှိရပေါ့နော်မြန်မာမှာတင်ထားတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ public health facility ဆိုတဲ့ဒီဆေးရုံတွေပေါ့နော်ခုဆေးရုံတွေရဲ့အချက်လက်တွေ point တွေ data တွေကိုကျွန်တော်တို့အဲ့ဒါကို upload လုပ်ထားတာရှိတယ်နောက်တစ်ခုကဘာတွေထပ်လုပ်ထားလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်မြန်မာနိုင်ငံမှာရှိတဲ့မြို့နယ်တွေမှာရှိတဲ့ရွာတွေပေါ့နော် village point တွေပေါ့နော်village point တွေကိုလည်းကျွန်တော်တို့တွေ upload လုပ်ထားတာရှိရတင်ထားတာရှိအခုဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့တော်တော်များများပြီးသွားပြီကချင်နဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့ဟိုမှာပဲကျန်တော့တယ်ပေါ့နော်ရှမ်းပြည်နယ်မှာပဲကျန်တော့တော်တော်များများပြီးသွားပြီနောက်တစ်ခုကကျွန်တော်တို့တွေ word boundary ပေါ့နော်မြန်မာကနေရတဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့ word boundary တွေလည်းကျွန်တော်တို့တွေတင်ပြရရှိရပေါ့နော်နောက်ပြီးတော့ဘာတွေထက်ရှိသေးလဲဆိုနောက်ဘာတွေထက်ရှိလာအောင်မလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ပေါ့ဆွဲဖို့အတွက်မှာကျွန်တော်တို့မှာအားနည်းနေတာနောက်တစ်ပါးရှိသေးတယ်ဆိုရင် waterway တွေပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့မှာ waterway နဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးတော့ knowledge တွေလည်းနည်းနေသေးတယ်မရှိသေးဘူးအခုလက်ရှိမှာတော့အားလုံးက building နဲ့ဒီ road ရဲ့ settlement area တွေကိုပဲအဓိကထားပြီးတော့ဆွဲနေကြတာပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့ရဲ့အခုလက်ရှိသွားနေတဲ့ဟောပါပေါ့နော်နောက်အခုဒီဟာပြီးသွားလို့ကျွန်တော်တို့တွေဒီ HOD နဲ့တွဲလုပ်နေတဲ့အခု project ကြီးပေါ့နော် damage assessment လုပ်တဲ့ building damage assessment လုပ်တဲ့ earthquake project ကြီးပြီးသွားတယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်လည်းကျွန်တော်တို့မှာပေါ့နော်ဒီ myOSM မှာဟိုရှိသေးတယ်ပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့မှာလည်း stipend program တခုရှိရပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့ stipend program ကဘာလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့က3ခုပေးထားရပေါ့နော်ဒီမှာမတည်သေးတဲ့သူတွေတော့ပေါ့နော်တချို့တွေကလည်းဒီမှာ join လာတဲ့တချို့တွေကလည်းတည်ထားပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့မှာ stipend program 3ခုရှိတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့မှာmapper ရယ်ပြီးလို့ရှိရင် validator ရယ်ပြီးလို့ရှိရင်ဟို teacher ရယ်ဆိုပြီးတော့3ခုရှိရပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ mapper ဒီmap လုပ်ရမယ်ပြီးလို့ရှိရင် validator ဒီ validation လုပ်ရမယ်ပေါ့နော်ပြီးတော့ teacher ဒီteach လုပ်ရမှာပေါ့နော်အားလုံးကိုကဒီမှာ juice တွေအကြောင်းတို့ဂျိုဆန်မြေ juice တွေအကြောင်းစသဖြင့်ပေါ့အဲ့ဒါတွေကိုသင်ပေးပြီးတော့သူကဒီ OpenStreetMap ရဲ့ environment တွေကိုဝင်လာဖို့အတွက်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့လမ်းဖွင့်ပေးထားတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့မှာ stipend program ရှိတယ်အဲ့ဒါကလည်းအောက်တိုဘာဆိုနိုဝင်ဘာလကနေစပြီးကျွန်တော်တို့တွေအဲ့ဒါကိုစဖို့အတွက်ရှိတယ်ပေါ့နော် ပါအဲ့ဒါပါပဲเนาะဒီလိုတင်ပါတယ်
Thanks a lot. Thanks. I'm very excited to talk about myOSM and what some of the 15 gurus or open mapping champion has done and achieved over the past month. They went through a lot of training under us on what open mapping means, what the different tools are, what open mapping methodologies are. And I'm very confident that they can be very critical partners and collaborators with you in improving map data across Myanmar. Again, especially as Myanmar build back better. Okay, last, I will try to answer Patrick's question before we hit into the training portion. And if you have any more questions, feel free to share in the chat itself. So first question is, what other layers beyond building footprints, roads, damaged buildings have proven useful in disaster response, especially earthquakes, that were mapped by OSM or HOT, and other layers from other sources that can be combined? So part A question, my answer to part A first is that we purely worked on buildings, roads, and road damaged buildings because these were nothing that is PII, personally identifiable information, and these were features that were not be able to use to target certain populations. We do know at the very beginning there were interest in requests to us to map healthcare facilities. And I believe going forward, we are very keen in working with all of you. You are critical local stakeholders with local knowledge to be able to work with us and advise us on what are some safe data that we can work on, we can map, and we can upload to OSM. And I think this whole project is something that we are hoping to kick off even more OSM mapping in the future with you all. Part B is other layers of data from other sources. So we are very well aware that there are a lot of data sets that are available throughout Myanmar from different stakeholders. In my application form, many of you have mentioned that there are quite a few kinds of data sets that you're working on. And these are, very importantly, data sets that can also be uploaded to OpenStreetMap. Of course, we're not advising for everything to be uploaded. If some of these data can be used to target certain populations, then we wouldn't advise that. But we believe that there are also data sets among these that you are working with, that you have, that can be uploaded to OpenStreetMap. And this will go on to benefit other partners, other stakeholders working in similar areas or even different work. So I think we are still actively talking to quite a number of different partners to see how we can work with them to upload these data sets. This includes POI, points of interest, so that OSM is more richer, is much more richer going forward for everyone to tap on. And I believe Miko has identified a few, which includes pathways and water sources. Okay, Wintun, I agree. I think when it comes to Myanmar, there are still a lot of data sets that are missing. We might have only tackled 29 townships, but I believe there are still 100 plus townships in the rest of Myanmar that is still not well mapped and not well updated. Again, we're very excited to see how we can work with all of you to share some of the open mapping tools and knowledge to work with you on how can we identify the right information to upload to OSM for everyone to use. SME Hub, the correlation between the number of volunteers and people needed to cover the mapping and the time to execute a particular scope of map. I think to a certain extent, it's a equal correlation. The more people we have, the more faster the mapping will be completed. But above a certain number of threshold, above a certain threshold when it becomes too many mappers, that's where mapping becomes a bit slower and more challenging if these mappers are not well trained in the beginning. What I meant by that is that with this project itself, we worked with a group of a dedicated group of 15 gurus, 15 trainee gurus. These are local Myanmar mappers from myOSM. We went through with them several capacity building programs, train them on the tools that we were using, train them on open mapping approaches. This allowed them to better and deliver more quality map data that can be used when uploaded to OpenStreetMap. When you bring in too many of the public to map, that's when you start to find that there are some mappers who are not as careful. This could be mappers from outside of Myanmar, for example. There are some mappers who are not careful, and it takes a bit more effort to review their work, to invalidate their work, and to redo their work, for example. So I would say that is not a big concern at the moment. Our concern should be more of how can we roll out even more training, even more sharing of all of these open source tools with mappers in Myanmar itself, so that more people can be more familiar with open mapping and OpenStreetMap. And eventually, this will lead to a much more faster, more effective updating of map data in Myanmar. I hope that answers you. I believe Patrick is also answering your question. Okay. With that, then I'm going to pause here. If you have any questions, please reach out on the chat itself. We'll clarify over there. I want to take this chance to move into the training itself. This will be quick, simple trainings on, again, map swipe, tasking manager, and map roulette. Joe Zayalin, very thankfully, will be there to help translate all of the different points to Burmese. And the idea is that all of these training materials will be uploaded to YouTube. So that in the future, if you want to go through, like, how do I use map swipe, what is the walkthrough, it will be available on YouTube and Burmese and English for you to follow through. With that, can I hand over to Sam?
Yes, you can. But thanks so much. Now I'm going to start with a very straightforward, easy to use tool called MapSwipe.
Sorry, Sam. Before you, Dina, and Honey start, can you all introduce yourself first? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So pleasure to be here. My name is Sam Colchester. I work for Humanitarian OpenStreetMap Team, or HOT, closely with Bernard, Honey, Miko. And I lead the disaster response program at HOT, and have been supporting Bernard with particularly with the damage preparation for the damage assessment workshops. So yeah, pleasure to be here. I'm going to be showing you in a minute or two more about MapSwipe, which is a wonderful app. Maybe over to Honey.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I cannot open my camera right now, but yeah, I'm Honey from Buena. Most of my OSM gurus probably know me, and I work with Bernard in this H2H project. But I'm the GIS specialist of the Asia Pacific hub of HOT. So nice to meet you all, and I'm excited to share with you the tasking manager, which is a tool that we extensively used in this project. So thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, this is Dinar calling you from Jakarta, Indonesia. I am with HOT Asia Pacific. So I will share with you about map roulette. Thank you. Back to you, Sam.
Fantastic, Dinar. Thank you. Thanks all. Now I'm going to be sharing my screen directly from my mobile. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm going to be showing you the MapSwipe mobile application. And this is how contributions were made for the crowdsourced damage assessment in Myanmar. You can download the MapSwipe app from the Google Play or Apple Store, and it's free. Once you've downloaded the app, you can launch it like this. And it's going to immediately show you some available projects.
Sam, should I translate or?
Yeah, if you're happy to. Yeah, perfect.
ဟုတ်ကဲ့ဟိုပါပေါ့နော်ဟိုအခုပထမဆုံးပြမယ့် application อ่ะပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဖုန်းထဲမှာသုံးတဲ့ application ပေါ့နော်အများဟိုကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီ damage assessment တွေလုပ်တဲ့အချိန်မှာပထမဆုံးစပြီးသုံးရတဲ့ app ပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒါကျတော့ website ကိုခေါ်တယ်အဲ့ဒါကိုဘယ်ကနေပြီးတော့ download လုပ်လို့ရတယ်ဆိုရင် Android မှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ App Store မှာရပြီးတော့iOS မှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ App Store မှာပဲပြီးတော့လည်းရနိုင်ပါတယ်ပေါ့ website ဆိုရင်ပေါ့နော်
Perfect. So what we see here is a list of projects that we can contribute to. Anyone can contribute to.
ဟုတ်အဲ့တော့ပထမဆုံး interface မှာတွေ့ရတဲ့ဟာတော့ဒါကိုဝင်ပြီးတော့ဟိုပါပေါ့နော်ဆွဲလို့ရတဲ့ဟိုပါပေါ့နော်ဟို project တွေကိုပြထားတာဖြစ်တယ်ပေါ့နော်
To contribute, we tap on any of these projects. When we tap on a project, we can see a description of the project that tells us why this area needs to be mapped.
အဲ့တော့အဲ့ project တွေနေရာမှာကိုဝင်ပြီးတော့ contribution လုပ်ချင်တဲ့ project တစ်ခုကိုနှိပ်လိုက်တယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သူကအဲ့ project ထဲဝင်သွားတယ်ဝင်သွားတဲ့အထက်မှာသူကပထမဆုံးပြထားတာကဘာလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင် description ပြထားတာပေါ့နော်ဘာကြောင့်မလို့ဒီ map ကိုလုပ်တာပါဘာအတွက်လုပ်တာပါဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုပထမဆုံးစာမျက်နှာမှာဖော်ပြထားတာပေါ့နော်
We can look at the description and the title to discover what we need to map. So for this project, we need to map buildings.
အဲ့တော့ဒီမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ပထမဆုံးနဲ့ interface ကိုကြည့်လိုက်မယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သူကဘာကို map လုပ်ခိုင်းတာလဲဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုဒီမှာပြောထားတယ်ပေါ့နော်
Now for first-time contributors, they're going to want to do the tutorial, which is inbuilt in the app. And to do that, they can press tutorial here.
ပထမဆုံးစပြီးတော့ဆွဲမဲ့သူတွေပေါ့နော်ဒါကိုအတွေ့အကြုံမရှိတဲ့လူတွေကပထမဆုံး tutorial ဆိုတဲ့ကျွန်တော်အစမ်းလေ့ကျင့်တဲ့ဟာလေးရှိတယ်သူကတော့ app ထဲမှာ built-in နေနဲ့ပါလာတာပေါ့နော်
This is a interactive detailed tutorial which tells us step by step how to make a contribution on MapSite.
အဲ့တော့ဒီမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ခုနပြထားတဲ့ပုံရဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သူကဟိုပါပေါ့နော်သူကအသေးစိတ်သူကညွှန်ပြထားတဲ့ဟာပေါ့ဘယ်လိုမျိုး map လုပ်ရမယ်ဘယ်လိုမျိုး map လုပ်ရအောင်ဆိုတဲ့ပုံစံလေးပြထားတယ်
It has some example images, satellite images, and it's going to give us feedback if we try and complete these tasks.
အဲ့တော့အဲ့မှာ imagery လေးတွေ့ရမှာပေါ့နော်အောက်မှာ imagery လေးတွေအဲ့ဒါလေးကိုနှိပ်လိုက်လို့ရှိရင်သူကသူ့ရဲ့ information လေးတွေပေါ်လာတယ်ပေါ့နော်
Whenever we see the feature that we're asked to find, we tap once.
အဲ့တော့ကိုကတွေ့တဲ့ကိုလိုချင်တဲ့ feature ကိုတွေ့ပြီဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကတစ်ချက်နှိပ်
Whenever we're unsure, if we're not sure what the feature is, but it could be, for example, a building, you can double tap 1, 2.
မသေးကြတဲ့ဟာမျိုးကိုကမသေးကြဘူးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့နှစ်ချက်နှိပ်တယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒါဆိုဝါရောင်လေးပြောင်းသွား
And to switch to the next screen, you swipe from right to left.
အဲ့တော့နောက်တစ်ခုတနေရာကို change နေဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ညာဘက်ပဲပြပဲရွှေ့လိုက်တယ်နော်ညာဘက်ကိုရွှေ့လိုက်တယ်နော် swipe လုပ်လိုက်
If we see an area with no features to identify, we just swipe through like this.
အဲ့တော့ဘာမှကိုကအိမ်ကြီးမတွေ့ဘူးဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကဆက်တိုက်ကျွန်တော်တို့က swipe လုပ်သွားတယ်နော်
If the imagery is bad or there are clouds, you can tap 3 times to mark squares red and tell the app there is bad imagery.
တကယ်လို့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကြည့်လိုက်တဲ့ imagery ကမကောင်းဘူးစိုးနေတယ်ဥမာအတိတ်နေနဲ့ကွယ်နေဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ကွယ်နေတဲ့နေရာကိုကျွန်တော်3ချိန်ထိလိုက်တယ်နော်3ချိန်ထိလိုက်လို့ရှိရင်အနီရောင်လေးပြောင်းသွားတယ်ပေါ့နော်
You can also swipe down on the screen to mark all the tiles as bad imagery.
ဒီလိုကိုကအဲ့လိုမျိုးအကုန်လုံးအတွက်ကိုလည်းအပေါ်ကနေပြီးအောက်ထီကိုဆွဲချလိုက်ပြီးတော့လည်းအားလုံးကိုဟို bad imagery ဆိုပြီးတော့လည်းကျွန်တော်တို့ subscribe လုပ်လိုက်လို့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်
Now I'll show you some real contributions in this project in Pakistan.
အဲ့တော့ Pakistan မှာ Pakistan project တစ်ခုကိုတကယ် project တစ်ခုကိုပြမယ်ပေါ့
Now I select map now. I look at the top of the screen and notice I'm asked to find buildings.
ကျွန်တော်ဘယ်ဘက်တောင်းအောင်လေးစပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်ကြည့်မယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကဘာကို map လုပ်ရမှာလဲဆိုရင်အိမ်ရှိလားမရှိလားဆိုတော့ map လုပ်မယ်
I swipe through the imagery carefully, looking for buildings.
ကျွန်တော်တို့ view design နဲ့ဟိုပါပေါ့နော်imagery လေးကို swipe လုပ်မယ်အဲ့မှာအိမ်ပါလားမပါလားကြည့်မယ် swipe လုပ်မယ်
If I want to zoom into a tile, I can hold on the tile and it will zoom.
တကယ်လို့ကိုကအဲ့အတွင်းလေးကို zoom နေနဲ့ zoom ဆွဲပြီးကြည့်ချင်တယ်ဆိုရင်အဲ့ကိုဆွဲချင်တဲ့ zoom imagery ပေါ်မှာထောက်ဖိထားလိုက်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒါဆိုတော့ pop up ပေါ်လာလိမ့်မယ်နော်အဲ့လိုမျိုးပါဖိထားလိုက်လို့ရှိရင်ပေါ်လာလိမ့်မယ်
You can swipe through the imagery quite quickly once you get the hang of looking for the feature you're looking for.
အဲ့တော့ကိုကဒါလုံးပါများလာလို့ရှိရင်တော့ကိုတက်ပြီးတယ်ဆိုတော့မြန် swipe လုပ်လို့ရတာပေါ့နော်
At the bottom of the screen, you can see a progress bar in white that moves along.
အောက်ဆုံးလေးမှာဆိုအဖြူရောင်ဘားတန်းလေးရှိရဲအဲ့ဒါကိုယ့်ရဲ့ project ဘယ်လောက်ထိပြီးသွားပြီဆိုတဲ့ progress ကိုပြတဲ့ဟာလေးပေါ့နော်
Here I can see some buildings, so I'm tapping on all the squares that have the buildings.
ဒီမှာခုနကတော့အိမ်ကိုတွေ့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့အိမ်တွေ့တဲ့ဟာကိုသူကအိမ်တွေ့ပါတယ်ဆိုပြီးတစ်ချက်စီးထောက်သွားတယ်နော်
Once that progress bar reaches 100%, you can either decide to continue mapping, or you can go back to this main screen and choose another project to work on.
အဲ့အောက်ကအပြခုနကတော့အဖြူတန်းလေးပြီးတဲ့အထိကိုက swipe လုပ်လို့ရှိရင်နောက်ဆုံးမှတော့ pop up တစ်ခုထွက်လာတယ်ပေါ့နော်စာကြောင်းတစ်ကြောင်းပေါ်တယ်အဲ့ဒါဘာလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဆက်ပြီးတော့ mapping လုပ်မှာလားဒါမှမဟုတ်ရှေ့ဝဲပြန်သွားမှာလားဆိုရင်မေးကုန်ပေါ့နော်တိတ်တဲ့ဟာကြီးလို့ရဆက်လုပ်မယ်ဆိုရင်နောက်ထပ် project တွေဆက်လာမယ်ရှေ့ကိုပြန်သွားမယ်ဆိုရင်ခုနကတော့ project screen ကိုပြန်လာမယ်ပေါ့နော်
There are many different project types. Some are for finding buildings, some for finding roads and buildings. Some are for checking mapping that's already been done. And there are other project types as well.
အဲ့တော့ project တွေကတော့မျိုးစုံရှိရပေါ့နော်တချို့ကတော့အိမ်တွေကိုလိုက်ရှာခိုင်းနေတာရှိမယ်တချို့ကတော့အိမ်ရဲ့ land ကိုရှာခိုင်းနေတာရှိမယ်တချို့ကတော့ဆွဲပြီးသားဟာတွေကိုပြန်ပြီးတော့မှန်လားမမှန်လားစစ်ခိုင်းတဲ့ဟာတွေရှိတယ်ပေါ့နော်
This gives you a sense of the contributions that were made through this app to identify damaged buildings.
အဲ့ဒါကိုပြချင်းရမယ်ဟိုဒီမှာဘယ်လိုမျိုး contribution damage mapping ဘယ်လိုမျိုး contribution လုပ်လဲဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုကြည့်နိုင်တယ်ပေါ့နော်ပြလိုက်တယ်
Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate one of those projects right now because they're all completed, which is good.
ဒါပေမဲ့အခုပြလို့မရဘူးပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့တော်တော်များများကဟိုပြီးနေပြီပေါ့နော်အားလုံး project တွေပြလို့မရဘူးဖြစ်နေတယ်
Fantastic. Many thanks. I will share a link to a web version of this application. So if you prefer to use a laptop or desktop to contribute, you can.
ဒီရရဲ့ link လေးကိုပို့ပေးမယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ကဲလို့ကိုကဖုန်းနဲ့မလုပ်ချင်ဘူးဟိုပေါ့နော် web version နဲ့လုပ်ချင်တယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ link လေးနဲ့ဒီ web version နဲ့လုပ်လို့ရတယ်
Okay, fantastic. Thanks very much. That's it for the map site demo.
website တက်ကတော့လောက်ပါပဲဟို chat ထဲမှာဟိုလေးပေါ့နော် website ရဲ့ link လေး share ထားပါတယ်
Many thanks for this, Sam. For the others, map swipe is a very powerful and quick way to find all of the different areas where there are buildings. So this means you can potentially cut a significant portion of time spent on finding a building in this area and clicking through buildings with areas without buildings, for example. So from here, I would like to sorry, SME help.
Sorry, I just have one quick question. I want to understand a little bit better on the offline compatibility of MapSite, because even though we are asking for volunteers, I mean, like, some people might be interested to. Some people might be interested to who do not have like online capabilities to volunteer. So I want to understand a little bit better on that.
Thanks a lot for the question. What we're sharing tools that will require connectivity. This might be on your browser. This might also be on your mobile phone. In this particular case, MapSwipe will not be a suitable tool for the challenge that you have mentioned. There are, however, other tools that are available, and I'm more than excited to discuss with you to better understand what are some of the challenges and constraints on the ground, and how we can work together to identify a suitable tool that we can support local communities to conduct mapping on. Sorry, Joseline, I know that's very long. Do you mind if you help me translate?
Okay. ပြောမယ်ဆိုဟိုပါနော်ဒီ website ကပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီဟိုပါနော်ဟို web version နဲ့တော့မဟုတ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကဒီ home version ပဲရှိတာပေါ့နော်ဟို offline အနေနဲ့သုံးလို့ကတော့ဟိုမရဘူးပေါ့နော်သူအဲ့အတွက်လည်း encourage မလုပ်ပေါ့ဒီ online ဖြစ်ရမယ် online base ဖြစ်ပြီး online ကနေပြီးတော့ရတဲ့ project တွေကိုဆွဲရတဲ့အားဖြစ်တယ်ပေါ့နော် offline နေလုပ်လို့ရတာမဟုတ်ဘူးပေါ့ Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I will now pass this on to Hani.
Yes, thank you, Bernard. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So after map swipe, we will be demonstrating how to use the hot tasking manager. So hot tasking manager allows people from different places all around the world to map together large areas by dividing it into small manageable squares or tasks. So Kiao, you can translate that.
အဲ့တော့ဒါဒုတိယ session လေးနဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့တွေဒါပြောမဲ့အကြောင်းအရာ tasking manager ဆိုတဲ့ဟာပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ tasking manager ဆိုတာဘာလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကကမ္ဘာလုံးမှာရှိတဲ့လူတွေကနေပြီးတော့ဒီထဲမှာလာပြီးတော့ contribution လာလုပ်လို့ရတယ်လာပြီးတော့ဆွဲလို့ရတဲ့နေရာလေးတစ်ခုဖြစ်တယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့မှာကျွန်တော်တို့ကပြောမယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဟိုပါပေါ့နော်ဟိုဆွဲတဲ့ဟာတွေကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ကအပိုင်းလိုက်ပြီးလုပ်ပြီးတော့အကြီးကြီးမှကျွန်တော်တို့ဆွဲရမယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သုံးတဲ့ဟိုပါပေါ့နော်ဟို tasking manager ပေါ့နော် Yeah, Annie.
Okay, it also allows us to organize our mapping project because it locks each task. Only one person can map a square or a task at a time, so it will prevent any overlap in editing simultaneously. And also it allows that for all of the parts of the whole large area to be mapped within the project completion.
အဲ့တော့ပထမဆုံးတော့တစ်ချက်အနေနဲ့ကတော့သူက organize လုပ်ရတာအရင်လွယ်တယ်ပေါ့နော်သူဘယ်တိုင်းတာထိပြီးသွားပြီဘယ်တိုင်းတာထိပြီးသွားပြီဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုကြည့်လို့ရတယ်နောက်တစ်ခါကျတော့ task တစ်ခုကို log လုပ်ပြီးတော့ဆွဲလိုက်ပြီးဆိုတာနဲ့နောက်တစ်ယောက်ကအဲ့ဟာကိုဆွဲလို့မရဘူးအဲ့တော့ကျတော့ဟိုပေါ့နော် overlap ဖြစ်မဲ့ကိစ္စတွေကိုလည်းသူကဘူးကြမလို့ပေါ့နော်ဒီ tasking manager နောက်ပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့တွေပဲ area အကြီးတွေကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ပိုင်းပြီးတော့ဘယ် area တွေကတော့ဘယ်လောက်ထိပြီးသွားပြီဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုလည်းဒီချာ organize လုပ်ကြည့်လို့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒါအတွေ့အတတ်ချက် Yeah, Annie.
So the tasking manager is free to use as long as you have your laptop or your computer and access to the internet. And it's very essential for disaster response, disaster prevention, and also other humanitarian development applications.
ဒီကောင်ကတော့သူ့ရဲ့ သူကတော့ဘယ်မှာပဲသုံးလို့ရလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကွန်ပျူတာတွေမှာပဲကျွန်တော်တို့ကသုံးလို့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်ဖုန်း version တွေတော့မရှိဘူးเนาะကွန်ပျူတာမှာပဲသုံးလို့ရတယ်သူကတော့ဘာအတွက်သုံးဝင်လဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ခုနပြောသလိုပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့ disaster response disaster preparedness ဆိုပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဘေးအန္တရာယ်ကာကွယ်မှုတွေမှာကျွန်တော်တို့တွေအတွက်ပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဆွဲတဲ့နေရာမှာဒီကောင်ကသုံးလို့ကောင်းတယ်ပေါ့နော်
Okay, so you can check the stats here. So again, how to go to the tasking manager, just put task.hotosm.org in your browser. And then on the upper right corner, you will see the login or sign up option. So if you want to sign up, you can sign up via your email. But if you have an OpenStreetMap account, you can quickly log in through your OSM account and it will be connected to the hot tasking manager.
အဲ့တော့ဒီဟာကိုဘယ်လိုတွားရမှန်းမသိဘူးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကအဲ့မှာပြထားတဲ့ခုနက tax.hotosm.org ဆိုတဲ့ဟာလေးကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ရဲ့ browser ထဲမှာရိုက်ထည့်လိုက်မယ်။ရိုက်လိုက်လို့ရခုနကတော့ interface လေးပေါ်လာတယ်ပေါ့နော်။အဲ့မှာအဲ့ interface မှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့က login နဲ့ sign up ဆိုပြီးတော့နှစ်ခုရှိရဲ။အဲ့တော့ sign up မှာဆိုရင်ကိုယ့်ရဲ့ email နဲ့ sign up လုပ်လို့ရတယ်။ login ဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကကိုယ့်ရဲ့ OpenStreetMap account နဲ့ login ဝင်လိုက်လို့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်။အဲ့ဒါဆိုရင်hot tasking manager ထဲရောက်တော့ပေါ့နော်။ Yeah.
Okay, to start looking for a project to work on, so click on explore projects and you can find different projects according to difficulty level, what type of activity or mapping you have to do, and also you can look for a specific project if you know their project ID. So in our case, we have a specific project that we will work on today.
အဲ့တော့ပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့မှာဟိုပါပေါ့နော်ဒီကြည့်လိုက်တာနဲ့ပထမဆုံးတွေ့ရတဲ့ Explorer project ဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုသွားကြည့်လိုက်မယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့မှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သူက project တွေပေါ့ကမ္ဘာလုံးမှာရှိတဲ့ project တွေဖန်တီးထားတဲ့ project တွေပေါ်မယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့မှာ difficulty level ပေါ့နော်ဘယ်လောက်ထိကိုယ့်အတွက်ဘယ်လောက်ထိအခက်ခဲပုံမူတည်ပြီးတော့လဲကိုယ်ရှာလို့ရတယ် project ပုံစံပေါ်မှာမူတည်ပြီးတော့လဲရှာလို့ရတယ် project ရဲ့ဟိုပါပေါ်မှာလဲရှာလို့ရတယ်နောက်တစ်ခုကကျွန်တော်တို့က type ဟိုပေါ့နော်ဒီ chat search box လေးထဲမှာသွားပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ရဲ့ project ID ကိုတည်ရလဲ ID ကိုကြိုက်ပြီးရှာလို့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်အခုကျွန်တော်တို့အခုပြထားတဲ့ project ကကျွန်တော်တို့အခုလုပ်ဟိုပါပေါ့နော်ဟိုအလုပ်မဲ့ project ပေါ့နော်30300ပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ check
Okay, so looking at the project, before you click on the contribute, it is important to first scan through the project title and also the project description. So you will know here what you are supposed to do and what the project is for, so that before you enter the project and contribute, you will know what you are contributing for and the greater cost of the mapping project you will be working on.
အဲ့တော့ contribution မလုပ်ခင်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့လိုကို task ကိုရွေးပြီးတော့လို့ကွာအဲ့ဟို project ထဲဝင်ပြီးတော့လုပ်တော့မယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သူကပထမဆုံးအနေနဲ့ဘာကိုဖတ်ရမလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ project ရဲ့ description အကြောင်းပေါ့နော်ဘာကို map လုပ်ရမှာလဲဘာမျိုးစာကိုလုပ်ရမှာလဲဘယ်လိုပုံစံမျိုးနဲ့ map လုပ်ရမှာလဲဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုကိုကအဲ့မှာဖတ်ပြီးတော့မှလုပ် contribution လုပ်ရမယ်ပေါ့နော်
All right. And also here in the project page, you will already know what type of mapping you have to do. So highlighted here is road mapping and the default imagery the project is using, which is Bing.
ပထမအောင်စာမျက်နှာမှာဘာဆွဲရမလဲဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုတန်းပေါ်တယ်ပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့ရဲ့မှာ type of mapping ဆိုတဲ့အောက်ကလေးမှာ land လေးက link နေတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ပြောချင်တာဒီဟာဒီ land ဆွဲရမယ် project ဖြစ်တယ်သုံးရမယ် imagery ဒီ Bing ကိုသုံးရမှာဖြစ်တယ်ပေါ့နော်
Now that you know more about the project, you can press on contribute.
project ကြောင့်သိသွားပြီဆိုတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ contribute ဆိုတဲ့ဆက်နေလိုက်မယ်
And hopefully your internet is faster than mine. Okay. And you here in the right side, you can see the tasks or squares that I was talking about. So each of the square has a different color representing the status of the mapping. So for white squares, these are tasks that are open or available for mapping. The ones in light blue, mapping has been finished, but we are asking for validators to check them once again and validate the map task. And the teal colored ones are those that have been mapped and also have been validated, or as we call here, finished.
အဲ့တော့ပထမဆုံးမြင်လိုက်တဲ့အထဲမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ညာဘက်ချမ်းမှာရှိနေတဲ့ဒါ map frame ထဲမှာရှိတဲ့ဟာတွေကကျွန်တော်တို့ခုနကပြောတဲ့ task တွေပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့လုံးလုံးကျွန်တော်တို့ဝင်ဆွဲရမယ် task တွေပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့အဲ့မှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သူ့ရဲ့ဟိုခွဲထားတာအယောင်နဲ့ခွဲထားတာ၄မျိုးလောက်ရှိတယ်ပေါ့နော်။ဒီမှာပေါ်နေတော့၃မျိုးပေါ့ပထမဆုံး white ပေါ့အဖြူရောင်လေးကကျွန်တော်တို့ကဘာကိုပြောချင်တာလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင် map လုပ်လို့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်လွတ်နေသေးတယ်အဲ့နေရာမှာ map ဝင်လုပ်လို့ရပါတယ်ဆိုတော့ဆိုလိုတယ်အဲ့မှာနည်းနည်းလေးအပြာဖြော်လေးဖြစ်သွားတဲ့ဟာကဘာလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်map လုပ်ပြီးသွားပြီသို့တော်လည်းပဲ validation မလုပ်ရသေးဘူးပေါ့နော် map ကတော့တရားကနေလုပ်ပြီးသားနောက်ပြီးတော့အဲ့ဟာကိုမှအစိမ်းရောင်လေးပြောင်းသွားတဲ့ဟာကဘာလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်map လည်းလုပ်ပြီးပြီ validation လည်းလုပ်ပြီးပြီဆိုတော့ပြီးသွားပြီဆိုတဲ့သဘောပေါ့နော်အကုန်လုံးပြီးသွားပြီဆိုတဲ့သဘောကိုတက်ရောက်ပေါ့နော် Yeah.
Okay, so before you click on a white tile and map a task, let's first read through the instructions so that you would know what to map. So here on the bottom, you already know that it will be a road mapping project. But here in the instructions, you will see exactly or learn how to map the roads. And here there is also a translation for you to use.
Yeah. အဲ့တော့အဲ့ခုနပြောတဲ့အဖြူလေးဒီမှာကိုကစပြီးတော့မဆွဲခင်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ဟိုဒါကတော့ဟိုစအခုမှစဆွဲမဲ့သူတွေပြောချင်တာပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ဆွဲမဲ့သူတွေကအဲ့အဖြူကွက်ကလေးကိုရွေးပြီးဆိုတာနဲ့ဘာကိုသွားကြည့်ရမလဲဆို instruction ပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့သူ့ရဲ့ instruction ကိုကြည့်ရမယ်အဲ့ instruction မှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဘာကိုဆွဲရမလဲပေါ့နော် mapping မျိုးစားဘာကို map လုပ်ရမှာပြီးလို့ရှိရင်ဘယ်လိုဆွဲရမှာလဲပေါ့ဘာတွေကိုသုံးရမှာလဲဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုအဲ့မှာသူကဖော်ပြထားတယ်ပေါ့နော်
Okay, so there is details that you also have to highlight here. For example, the project manager of this project allows the tasks to be split if they are too big. And also bridges and fords should be also mapped along the crossing the streams or river.
အဲ့တော့အဲ့မှာဆိုရင်တခြားဖတ်ဖို့လိုတာကဘာလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တချို့ဟာတွေကကျတော့ mention လုပ်ထားတဲ့ဟာရှိရပေါ့အဲ့ဒါဘာတွေလဲဆိုလို့ကျွန်တော်ဒီမှာတိုက်ပုံပဲပြီးတော့ပေါ်နိုင်တဲ့ဟာတွေဘာတွေလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့မှာဆို area အရန်ကြီးနေရဆိုလို့ရှိရင် area ကိုချုပ်ပြီးတော့လုပ်လို့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်နောက်တစ်ခုကဘာလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင် land ကိုဆွဲနေတဲ့အချိန်မှာကျွန်တော်တို့ရေကြော်တို့တရားတို့ပြည့်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တခါတည်း map လုပ်ပြီးပါဆိုတဲ့ information လေးကိုအဲ့ instruction လေးတွေမှာထည့်ပေးထားအဲ့ဒါကိုဖတ်ဖို့ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကိုကအဲ့ဒါတွေကိုဆွဲဖို့ကြံပြတတ်တယ်နော်
Okay, but for today, we will be using this project to demonstrate the mapping of buildings and roads. So please disregard for now the specific instructions. We will be using it for mapping, again, buildings and roads.
အဲ့တော့ဒီနေ့မှာတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကဒီ project ကတော့သူက land ကိုပဲဆွဲခိုင်းတာဆိုပေမဲ့လည်းတကယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီမှာအိမ်ကိုရယ် land ရယ်နှစ်မျိုးစလုံးကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ဆွဲပြမှာဖြစ်တယ်ပေါ့နော်ဒီ project က
All right, so I just have to click on one project that I want to work on. So make sure that the grid or the square is available for mapping, and then choose the editor that you want to use. If you are a beginner mapper, I suggest use the ID editor. If you are more advanced or intermediate, you can install JOSM and use the JOSM editor.
အဲ့တော့စပြီးတော့ဆွဲတော့မယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဖြူကွက်ကလေးကိုလိုက်ရှာပါတော့ရှာပြီးလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့အဖြူကွက်ကလေးကိုထောက်လိုက်ထောက်ပြီးတော့လို့ရှိရင်အောက်မှာ editor ဆိုတဲ့ကွက်ကလေးမှာသူကနှစ်မျိုးပြောပေးထားတယ်နော် ID editor နဲ့ဆွဲမှာလား JOSM နဲ့ဆွဲမှာလားအဲ့တော့လုံးဝကိုက beginner ခုမှစဆွဲမယ်သူဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့အကြံပေးတာတော့ ID editor နဲ့ဆွဲတင်တယ်ဒီလိုကိုကတော့မဟုတ်ဘူးဆွဲတာလည်းကြာပြီဟိုအကျန်းတုံငင်နဲ့ရှိနေပြီဆိုရင်တော့ JOSM editor ကိုသုံးပြီးတော့ဆွဲလို့ရတယ်နော်
Okay, and then map the selected task.
ကွက်ကိုရွေးပြီးရတယ် map the selected text ဆိုတာရွေးလိုက်လို့ရှိရင်တော့ပေါ်လာတယ်နော်
Okay, so upon loading, what you will see is this purple square or bounding box. So this is your mapping area, meaning you will only map within the box and you will not map outside of the box.
ပထမဆုံးပေါ်လာတာတော့ဒီဟိုခရမ်းရောင်နဲ့တားခါတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့၄တောင်ပုံစံကွက်ကလေးပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့က၄တောင်ပုံစံအတွင်းထဲမှာပဲဆွဲရမှာ၄တဲ့ပုံစံဟိုကြော်ပြီးတော့ဘယ်ဘက်ဟိုကြော်ပြီးဆွဲကြမလို့ပေါ့နော်ဒါဆွဲရမယ့် area လေးကိုပြထားတာ
So for mapping buildings and roads, it is important to zoom in at a comfortable level so that all of the features will be loaded. The existing features in OSM will be loaded.
အဲ့တော့သူကတော့ zoom ဆွဲလိုက်မှပဲသူကကိုပေါ့နော်ဒီ zoom လေးနည်းနည်းဝင်ပြီးတော့ဆွဲလိုက်တော့မှပဲသူကအဲ့မှာရှိပြီးသားပေါ့ OSM မှာရှိပြီးသားဟိုပါပေါ့နော်အချက်လက်တွေကပေါ်လာတယ်ပေါ့နော်
Also, you can check here under map data and then check if all of the map features are enabled. So enable all.
အဲ့တော့အဲ့မှာဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကပေါ့နော်ဒီ map feature တွေအားလုံးကကျွန်တော်တို့အားလုံးဖွင့်ထားရလားပေါ့နော်ဒါတွေပိတ်ထားရလားဖွင့်ထားရလားအဲ့ဒါတွေအကုန်လုံးဖွင့်ထားဖို့လိုတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့အဲ့ tab ထဲမှာသွားပြီးတော့ map feature ရဲ့ဟာတွေအကုန်လုံးဖွင့်ထားလိုက်မှာပဲမရှိသမျှဟာတွေအကုန်လုံးပေါ်လာမှာမဆွဲထားပြီးသားဟာတွေပေါ်လာ
Okay. So now here I can see when I zoom in, these areas are full of unmapped buildings.
ဒီမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကြည့်လိုက်လို့ရှိရင်ပေါ့နော်မဆွဲအိမ်တွေကိုမဆွဲထားဘူးဆိုတွေ့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်
And on top is the tools that I can use to map features in OSM.
ဒါတော့အပေါ်မှာပြထားတဲ့ဟိုဟာ tools တွေကကြတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ဟို OpenStreetMap မှာဆွဲဖို့တော့ပြထားတဲ့ tools တွေဖြစ်တယ်ပေါ့နော်
For mapping a building, we need to choose the area tool.
အိမ်ဆွဲဖို့တော့ area tools ကိုလိုတယ်ပေါ့ကျွန်တော်အိမ်စားဆွဲနေဆိုရင်
And then zoom in to the building that you want to map.
အဲ့တော့ကိုဆွဲမဲ့အိမ်ကို zoom in လေးကိုလုပ်လိုက်ပေါ့နော် zoom in လိုက်ပေါ့နော်ပို့ပြီးတော့ဆွဲလိုက်
So to map a building using the area tool, you have to trace the building by clicking on each corner of the building.
အဲ့တော့အိမ်ကိုဆွဲမဲ့ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကိုကဘယ်လိုဆွဲရမလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အိမ်ရဲ့တောင်းလေးအကုန်လုံးကိုကိုက click လေးလိုက်ပြီးတော့ချက်စီချ
And then right click, double click on the last point to finish the editing.
နောက်ဆုံးချတဲ့ point ပေါ်မှာ mouse ကနေ double click နှိပ်လိုက်ပြီးတော့ဒီအပြီးတက်လိုက်ရ
While the building is blinking with this red color, you have to go here on the left side and click on the specific feature type. In this case, it is a building.
တော့သူရထားသလိုပဲမိတ်တုံလေးဖြစ်နေတဲ့ဟိုပေါ့ selection ဝင်မိတ်တုံလေးဖြစ်နေတဲ့အချိန်မှာကျွန်တော်ဘယ်ဘက်ချောင်းသွားမယ်အဲ့မှာသူနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့သူနဲ့သက်ဆိုင်တဲ့ feature ကိုရေးပြရမယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ခုခြေလေးမှာဒါအိမ်ဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မလို့ building ဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ရေးလိုက်တယ်ပေါ့နော်
And also, if the building is rectangular or square, it is best practice to right-click on the building and choose or click on square. The shortcut also is on the keyboard is Q. So you can either do this or click on the building and press Q.
ဆွဲလိုက်တဲ့အိမ်က4000မဆန့်ဖြစ်နေတယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်4000ဆန့်ဖြစ်သွားအောင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကအမြဲတမ်းလုပ်ပြရတယ်အိမ်ဆွဲပြီးတော့လို့ရှိရင်အဲ့တော့အဲ့ပုံမှာအိမ်ရဲ့ပုံမှာ right click ထောက်ပြီးတော့ square ဆိုတဲ့ဟာလေးနှိပ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ရဲ့ computer မှာရှိတဲ့ Q ဆိုတဲ့ button လေးကို shortcut ကလေးကိုနှိပ်ရင်လည်းနှိပ်အဲ့ဒါလို့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်
Also, on the while right clicking, you can also see different edit options such as move. Also, you can rotate according to what is shown in the satellite imagery.
နော်အဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့မှာတခြားသော option တွေလည်းရှိသေးတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့ပုံမှာ right click ထောက်လိုက်တဲ့ solution အဲ့မှာ move ဆိုတဲ့ function ရဲ့နောက်တစ်ခုကrotate ဆိုတဲ့ function ပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့အောက်မှာပေးထားတဲ့ဟိုပါပေါ့အိမ်ကစောင်းနေနည်းနည်းစောင်းဖို့လိုနေဆိုရင် rotate လုပ်ပေးလိုက်ပေါ့နော်အဲဒါမှမဟုတ်ရွှေ့ပေးကြလို့လည်းဆိုရင်ရွှေ့ပေးလိုက်ပေါ့နော်
Okay, so now that we have mapped the building, let's look for a road segment to map.
နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့အိမ်ကိုဆွဲပြီးသွားပြီဆိုတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ land ကိုဘယ်လိုဆွဲမလဲဆိုပြီးရအောင်ပေါ့နော်
Okay, so I see that there is unmapped road segment here. So for this time, I will use the line tool for linear features such as roads.
အဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကဒီခါ line ကိုဆွဲမှာဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်ကျွန်တော်တို့ရွေးချယ်ရမယ့်ဟာဒီ line feature ကိုကျွန်တော်ရေးပြီးဆွဲပေးရမယ်ပေါ့နော်
So the best practice in mapping roads in OSM is to start on an existing road so that it is already connected to the road network.
အဲ့တော့ပထမဆုံးလမ်းဆွဲမယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အရေးကြီးဆုံးအချက်ကတော့ရှိပြီးသားလမ်းပေါ်ကနေပြီးတော့စပြီးဆွဲတင်တယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒါမှဒါလျှင်လမ်းကြီးကတစ်ဆက်တည်းဖြစ်နေတာပေါ့နော်
And just trace as you go. Sorry.
That's it.
So just trace according to what you see on the satellite imagery.
အဲ့တော့အောက်မှာ imagery ကိုမှမြင်တဲ့အတိုင်းကျွန်တော်တို့ကဆက်ဆွဲကြအောင်ပေါ့နော်
And then again, similar to the building mapping, while the feature is blinking red, go to the left panel and look for the feature type.
အဲ့တော့အခုဆိုရင်ဒါအဲ့လမ်းကိုဆွဲပြီးသွားပြီဆွဲပြီးသွားတဲ့အချိန်မှာအဲ့လမ်းလေးကမိတ်တုံလေးဖြစ်နေအဲ့အချိန်မှာကျွန်တော်တို့ကဒီဘက်ဘက်ချမ်းသွားပြီးတော့ဟိုပါပေါ့နော်သူ့ရဲ့လမ်းရဲ့ feature ကိုလိုက်ရှာမယ်သူလုံးမဲ့ feature ကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ရွေးချယ်မယ်ပေါ့နော်
And here, most of the roads I see are either unclassified or residential. So for this case, I will use the residential.
နောက်တော့လမ်းတွေကဒီမှာလောက်ထားတဲ့ unclassified လမ်းရဲ့ residential ဆိုတဲ့လမ်းကိုယူထားတော့ဒီမှာ residential road ဆိုပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်ရွေးချယ်လိုက်တယ်နော်
So right now we have a building map and a road segment map. We can already click on the save here on the upper right corner to upload it to OSM.
ကျွန်တော်အိမ်လဲဆွဲပြီးသွားပြီလမ်းကိုလည်းဆွဲပြီးသွားပြီဆိုတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့အဲ့ဒါတွေကိုကျွန်တော် save လုပ်မယ် upload လုပ်လို့ရပြီပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ညာဘက်ပေါ်ဆုံးတောက်မှာရှိတဲ့ save ဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုနှိပ်လိုက်
So here on the left side, make sure that you change your change set comment and describe what you did. So I will put here mapped, building, and road.
အဲ့တော့အမှ change set comment မှာကိုပါလုပ်လိုက်တယ်ဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုရေးတာအရေးကြီးတယ်အရေးကြီးဆုံးပဲပေါ့နော်များသောအားဖြင့်တို့တွေကမရေးကြဘူးရေးလိုက်လို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ဒါဘာလို့လုပ်လိုက်တာလဲဆိုတော့ဟုတ်ပြီအဲ့တော့ဒီမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဒီအိမ်ရဲ့လမ်းကိုဆွဲလိုက်ပါတယ်ဆိုတဲ့ဟာလေးကိုရေးထည့်လိုက်တယ်နော်
So this will help other mappers understand what you did on this change set.
အဲ့လိုရေးပေးခြင်းအပြင်ဒီဟာတခြားမြေပုံဆွဲတဲ့သူတွေကိုပါလုပ်လိုက်တယ်ဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုသိစေတယ်ပေါ့နော်
And then click on upload.
အဲ့ဒါပြီးပြီကျွန်တော် upload ဆိုအောင်လိုက်မယ်
All right. So now we go to the right side panel to answer this question.
ပြီးရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ upload လုပ်ပြီးသားပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ညာဘက်က panel ကိုသွားမယ် completion ဆိုတဲ့အောက်မှာပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့အဲ့မှာအခု highlight လုပ်ထားတဲ့မေးခွန်းကိုဖြည့်ပြရမယ်ပေါ့နော်
And since this task it is for mapping roads, and I can see some road networks which are not yet mapped, I will choose no.
ဒီမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့သူကနည်းနည်းပဲဆွဲရသေးတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ကြံနေသေးတယ်ပေါ့ဆွဲစရာကြီးအဲ့ဒါကြောင့်မလို့သူက no ဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုရွေးလိုက်တယ်နော်
You can also add comments to help the next mapper who will work on this task.
အဲ့တော့နောက်တစ်ခုက comment လည်းရေးပြလို့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်ပို့ရဲ့အဲ့လုပ်ထားတဲ့ project ကိုတောက်တဲ့တခြားသူက task ကိုလာပြီးတော့ဆွဲတဲ့ဒီအတွက်အကူအညီရဖို့အတွက်ကိုက comment ရေးခဲ့ထားလို့ရတယ်နော်
Okay, so submit the task, and now you have contributed to this tasking manager project.
အဲ့တော့နောက်တော့ submit လုပ်လိုက်ပြီဆိုတာနဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့က task တစ်ခုကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ contribution လုပ်ပြီးသွားပြီဆိုတော့ပေါ်ဖြစ်တာပေါ့နော်
So in that very quick way, you are helping support the project's goal. So remember the one that you read in the project page.
အဲ့တော့အဲ့လိုလုပ်ခြင်းအပြင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကဒီမြန်နဲ့မှန်မှန်ပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီ project ကို contribution လုပ်လိုက်ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့အဲ့ဟိုရဲ့အတိုင်းပေါ့နော် ကျွန်တော်တို့မှာပြထားတဲ့ဟို description အတိုင်းမှန်မှန်ကန်ကန် project ကို contribution လုပ်လို့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်
All right. So I think that's it for Hot Tasking Manager. If you have questions, please do add them on the chat box.
Much thanks for this, Annie and Josarin. I find Tasking Manager to be an amazing platform because it allows so many people to work together to quickly map an area. Let me pass on to Dina. It'll be a short session on Map with that. Yep, Dina.
Hey, thank you. Let me share my screen. So, okay. So I want to share with you quickly how MapRoulette, how these three tools connected. Yeah, saya
yeah နောက်တစ်ခုကတော့နောက်တစ် session တစ်ခုကကျွန်တော်နောက်ဆုံးတစ်ခုလည်းဖြစ်တယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒါပါလဲဆိုရင် map roulette ဆိုတဲ့ဟာပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ map roulette မှာ project ကိုဘယ်လိုတည်ဆောက်လဲဘယ်လိုမျိုးနေရာတွေကိုချိတ်ဆက်ပြီးသုံးလဲဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုပြောပြမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်ပေါ့နော်
Okay, so I start with tasking manager and let's connect to MapRoulette later.
အဲ့တော့စရမှာတော့ tasking manager နေစမယ်အဲ့ဒီ tasking manager ကို map roulette နဲ့ဘယ်လိုမျိုးဆက်မှာလဲဆိုတော့ပြပါပေါ့နော်
So for this one, I open the specific project to damage assessment in Macway, and I click open in ID editor, and I already signed in into my OSM account, and I click validate.
validation လေးဖို့အတွက်ကိုယ့်ရဲ့ account နဲ့ sign in လုပ်ပြီးတော့တခါတည်းအဲ့ task လေးကိုသူကဟိုလုပ်နေပြီးတော့ဝင်လိုက်တယ်ပေါ့နော်
And for this one, what is the instruction? What we need to do is just simply read the instruction.
ဘာလို့ခိုင်းတာလဲဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုတော့ instruction မှာဖတ်လိုက်ပေါ့နော်
And for example, we already done with these tags, and we find the damage tags, damage building, and we complete the tag for the damage building, and we submit it.
အဲ့တော့ဒီမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကဘာလုပ်ထားပြီးလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အိမ်နေလည်းတော်တော်ဆွဲပြီးသားပြီးလို့ရှိရင် damage ဖြစ်လာမဖြစ်လာဆိုတော့သတ်မှတ်ပြီးသွားပြီ damage ဖြစ်တဲ့ဟာတွေအကုန်လုံးလည်းလုပ်ပြီးဆွဲပြီးသွားပြီပေါ့နော်သတ်မှတ်ပြီးသွားပြီပေါ့
Okay, and then yeah, click submit, and then the data will goes to OSM server.
ပြီးရင်အဲ့ဒါအကုန်လုံးကကျွန်တော်တို့ OpenStreetMap ထဲရောက်သွားမှာပေါ့နော် submit လုပ်လိုက်တယ်
Now after all project in tasking manager done, we need to like conduct a double check for all work we have done in tasking manager.
အဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကအဲ့ဒါပြီးသွားပြီဆိုတော့လည်းကျွန်တော်ဘာလုပ်ရမလဲဆိုရင် double check နှစ်ခါစစ်ဆေးရမယ်ပေါ့နော်တကယ်ရော hot tasking manager မှာဆွဲတာကုန်ပြီးသွားပြီလားဆိုတဲ့ဟာစစ်ဆေးရမယ်ပေါ့
So the MapRoulette is the concept similar with tasking manager, but this is for specific thing or object.
အဲ့ tasking manager နဲ့ map roulette ကတော့ခက်ဆင်ဆင်တယ်တော်တော်လေးပဲသူကခက်ဆင်ဆင်ပဲတော့မတူဘာလို့လဲဆိုရင်သူဒီဘာအတွက်လုပ်တာလဲဆိုရင် project ဘောနော် object တစ်ခုအတွက်သို့မဟုတ်တစ်ပိုင်းအတွက်တစ်စားအတွက်ကိုသူကတစ်ခုချင်းစီလိုက်လုပ်တဲ့ဟာပေါ့
Okay, for example, this one review the damage building in Myanmar from previously mapped in hot tasking manager.
နော်အဲ့တော့ဒီဟာအခုဒါ project ဖန်တီးပြီးသား project လေးပေါ့နော်အဲ့မှာဆိုသူကဘာလို့ဆိုလိုတာလဲသူ့ရဲ့ကောင်းစဉ်ကဘာလို့ပြောချင်တာလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သူက tasking manager မှာဆွဲပြီးသားအဆောက်အဦတွေကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီဘက် map roulette မှာ damage အဆောက်အဦတွေက damage ဖြစ်နေလားမဖြစ်နေလားဆိုတဲ့ဟာကို review လုပ်မှာပေါ့နော်
On the left panel, you will see the real OSM data that contain a damage tag or identified as a damage building.
အဲ့တော့ဘယ်ဘက်ချမ်းမှာဆိုရင်မြေပုံထဲမှာကြည့်မယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကအဲ့မှာဆိုရင် damage ဖြစ်နေလားမဖြစ်နေလားဆိုတော့ tag လေးတွေတွဲထားတဲ့ point လေးတွေမြင်ရမယ်ပေါ့နော်
Okay, and then we click start,
start ဆိုတော့လေ့လိုက်မယ်
and there is a instruction same as a hot tasking manager. All we need to do is read the instruction.
ဟုတ်ပြီအဲ့မှာ tasking manager နဲ့သူနဲ့တူတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဒီမှာလည်းသူ instruction ပါတယ်အဲ့တော့အားလုံးလိုတာကတော့အကုန်လုံး instruction ဖတ်ရမယ်ဒီမှာလည်း instruction ကိုဖတ်ကြည့်ရမယ်
Okay, and then if anything unclear, just contact challenge owner.
တကယ်လို့ကိုကအဲ့မှာကိုကနားမလည်ဘူးပေါ့နော်ဖြစ်နေရဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့မှာအဆက်လေး30ကိုနှိပ်ပြီးသွားလို့ရှိရင် contact challenge owner ပေါ့အဲ့လူကိုလှမ်းဆက်တွေ့ရမယ်နော်
Okay, and how Now we will start to work on this. Click this one, edit in ID, and it will open the same ID editor as like we did in Hot Tasking Manager.
အဲ့တော့ခုနအစိမ်းလေးနဲ့ပြထားတဲ့ဟာလေးကတော့အဲ့မှာရေးထား ID editor နဲ့ဟို map လုပ်မှလာလို့မရပါဘူးเนาะအဲ့တော့ခုနကကျွန်တော်တို့ဆွဲတိုင်းတူတူပဲအဲ့ဒါကို click လုပ်လိုက်လို့ရှိရင် ID editor တွေရောက်သွားတယ်
And for now, the goal is to check the damaged building. So we need to check if this building is damaged or not.
အဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့ရဲ့ဟိုအခုလုပ်ရမယ့် task ကပါလဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သူကအဲ့အစာအုပ်ဒီပြက်စီးပြက်နေလား damage ဖြစ်နေလားမဖြစ်နေလားဆိုတာကိုစစ်ဆေးရမှာပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကအဲ့ဒါဟုတ်မဟုတ်စစ်ဆေးကြမှာနော်
Okay, after we are happy with the result. For example, this one, we are pretty sure this is a damaged building and this is the complete text for this damaged building, and there is nothing to do. We just go back to this challenge.
အဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့အဲ့ခုနကတော့အိမ်ကတကယ် damage ဖြစ်လားမဖြစ်လားဆိုတော့ဒီ satellite imagery မျိုးစုံနဲ့ကြည့်ပေါ့နော်ခုနကတော့ကြည့်သလိုပဲဘင်းနဲ့ကြည့်လိုက် ES တိုင်းကြည့်ပြီးတော့လို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ဒါဟုတ်တယ်သိကြတယ်အကုန်လုံးလုံးဝ damage ဖြစ်တယ်ဆိုရင်အဲ့ခုနကတော့ tag တွေကိုထည့်ပြီးတော့လို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့အခုဒီဟိုပါပေါ့နော် map roulette ထဲကိုဝင်လာခဲ့ပေါ့နော်
And we have several buttons to click after we done before we move to the next task. For example, this I feel that this is good already, and I will click not an issue. But if you do some modification, etc., you click I fix it, and it will direct you to the next task.
အဲ့တော့ဒါနောက်ထပ် task တစ်ခုမသွားခင်မှာဖြည့်ရမယ့်ဟာခုနအတူပဲပေါ့နော်ဟိုဟာရှေ့ကကျွန်တော်တို့ task manager တွေဒီမှာဆိုလဲသူကမေးတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဒီ point လေးဒီဘာလုပ်လိုက်တာလဲပေါ့နော်ကိုကတကယ်လို့ဘာမှမပြင်ထားဘူးဆိုလို့ရှိရင် not an issue ကိုကြွေးပြီးတော့တကယ်လို့ကိုကတစ်ခုခုပြင်ထားရဆိုရင် I fix it ကိုပေးလိုက်ပေါ့နော်
Okay, I think that's it about map roulette. At least you know, everyone know the big picture about map roulette.
နော်ဒါဆိုရင်အခုဆိုရင်တော့ map roulette ဆိုတာဘာကြီးလဲဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုတော့နည်းနည်းများနားလည်သွားမယ်လို့ထင်တယ်ပေါ့နော်
Thank you a lot. Thank you very much, Dina. Again, thank you a lot, Joseline, for your translations. Apologies, everyone. I know that we are at time, just a few more minutes. Map roulette for me, it's beautiful because it allows us to tackle one building or one feature at a time, allowing you to be much more careful and detailed. And map roulette allows you to work with so many different features. So map site, tasking manager, map roulette. I think there are a lot of ways that we can work with you on these tools to improve map data in Myanmar.